Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi Gray.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom, friends.
Shabbat Shalom!
Let's sing Hine Mato.
Hine Mato, Umanayim, Shemet Achim, Gam Yachad. Hine Mato, Umanayim, Shemet Achim, Gam Yachad.
How good it is.
How good it is.
How sweet it is.
How sweet it is
to be together on this day.
How good it is.
How good it is.
How sweet it
How
is.
sweet it is to be together on this day. Hine Mato, Umanayim, Shevet Achim, Gam Yachad. Hine Mato, Umanayim, Shevet Achim, Gam
Yachad. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum.
Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem,
Salam Aleikum. How good it is.
How good it is.
How sweet it is.
How sweet it is.
Be together on this day.
How good it is.
How good it
How
is.
sweet it is.
How sweet it is
to be together on this day. Hine Mato, Umanayim, Shevet Achim, Gam Yachad. Hine Mato, Umanayim, Shevet Achim, Gam Yachad.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I spent some time this afternoon studying the Talmud, and I found some teaching from the great Talmudic scholar George F. Will, who wrote, "Baseball is heaven's gift to mortals." If you're a baseball fan, you know exactly what that means. If you've ever experienced a baseball game in the land of Israel, you really know what that means. When I was in rabbinical school and in my first year in Israel, it was during the short-lived life of the Israel Baseball League. And we got to go to a game. I think it was Netanya versus Modi'in. They invited all of the rabbinic students and cantorial students who really helped out on this, and education students, to sing Take Me Out to the Ball Game. They didn't have hot dogs. They had hamburgers from Burger's Bar. And then, in the middle of the seventh inning, they stopped for mincha, the afternoon prayer service. I'm not making this up. Which was led by the first base coach, who stood in front of all the men in line and led the afternoon prayer. Baseball has a depth of spirituality. It has rules that are written and unwritten. There's a code. There's a sense of moral purpose, and it isn't bound by time. It happens when it happens. Another teaching from George F. Will. There is no written rule, but it is part of baseball's, what we'll call the Gemara, the Talmud of baseball, the common law, that batters shall not glance back to see where the catcher is setting up, because that reveals the intended pitch location. A catcher may give a peeking batter a polite warning. If the batter is a recidivist, the catcher may then set up outside, but call for a pitch inside. When the batter leans out towards where he thinks the pitch is going, his ribs, see, biblical, his ribs receive a lesson about respecting the common law. Sport is a moral undertaking because it requires of participants and schools its spectators in the appreciation of noble things: courage, grace under pressure, sportsmanship. Sport should be the triumph of character, openly tested, not of technology, surreptitiously employed. When we come together on a Friday evening, we come together in worship of the Holy One, in celebration of the blessings that we have received through creation. And as we read in the prayer service at different times, Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, the study of Torah is equal to them all. Everything that we do is a way to express the values that our tradition has passed on, l'dor v'dor, from generation to generation. I can think of very few things, especially in America, that have been passed on from generation to generation in the way that the love of baseball has. If you are one of the people who are part of that Shalshelet HaKabbalah, the chain of tradition, if you were taught baseball by your mother or your father or your grandmother or your grandfather, you know exactly how it feels to be a recipient of that tradition. Baseball, George Will wrote, is a habit. The slowly rising crescendo of each game, the rhythm of the long season, these are the essentials, and they are remarkably unchanged over nearly a century and a half. Of how many American institutions can that be said? I can think of one other: the synagogue and Jewish life. It's a habit. It ebbs and flows. There are moments of great celebration and moments of deep sadness. When you walk into a synagogue, you have a very good sense of what's going to happen, and yet you're always liable to be surprised. You may not have expected your rabbi wearing a baseball jersey tonight when you came into the synagogue. It's okay. But it holds and it binds us together. Our loyalties to our congregation, similar to the loyalties of our hometown teams. I see the Phillies and the Marlins and the Mets and the Cubs and the Yankees. I'm looking around the jerseys. I don't see anyone except for Jason, who's who's not even in the room, repping the Yankees. Any Red Sox? There we go. Any White Sox? Baruch Hashem, they're not here. If the Levs are watching, you knew that was coming. No. Tonight, as we celebrate Baseball Shabbat, we are pleased in celebrating Danny Valencia, who grew up here at the synagogue, and he'll say more about his time here. Although, Danny, welcome back to the sanctuary. Welcome back to the Bima in a few minutes. Danny played in the major leagues and also represented our people with great valiance at last year's Olympics, playing for Team Israel in the Tokyo Games. And he'll share more of his stories later on this evening. But as we come together tonight, we come together in a sense of celebration of community and celebration of our ethics and our values that hold our people together. And as we are ready for our service to begin, I say play ball and batter up. And take a moment now to wish those who are sitting around you a Shabbat Shalom and introduce yourselves if you are new to each other. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Our service begins this evening on pages 4 and 5 of our prayer book with the kindling of our Shabbat candles. Our Shabbat candles will be kindled this evening by tomorrow's B'nai Mitzvah, Rachel and Noah Deutsch. And we're here with their parents as well, or with their mother, Sharon, who is with us tonight as well. And Ronald, you come? Yeah. And their father, Ronald, too. I didn't know he was coming. Shabbat Shalom to the Deutsches. Pages 2 and 3.
And you guys are going to read into the mic here now, right here.
Can you say it?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
As the Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all those who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
And please light the candles now with that. And you guys go. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu
We continue with the words of Kiddush on pages 4 and 5. We invite up tomorrow's bar mitzvah, Cooper Reese, accompanied by his parents, Maria and Brian. For those of you who are aware of the work we have been doing to support the community in Ukraine, we have Maria to thank for laying all the groundwork to make that happen, and we are so deeply grateful for all the work that you have done. Pages 4 and 5.
The heaven and the earth were finished, and all their array. On the seventh day God finished the work that God had been doing, and God ceased on the seventh day from all the work that God had done. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, because on it God ceased from all the work of creation that God had done.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinhilanu Zikaron lama'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom tehila limkra et kodesh zeher letziyat mitzrayim kivanu v'charta v'otanu kedashta mikol hamim V'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinhaltenu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha'shabbat.
Beautiful job.
Amen, and L'chaim, and Mazel Tov to Cooper, and to Noah, and to Rachel. You'll have a wonderful day tomorrow. Can't wait to celebrate with everybody. As the game begins, the announcer calls out the opening the lineups for the game. The groundskeepers make sure that the bases are as white as possible and the dirt has been watered down. And so do we, as Shabbat comes in. We call out to welcome the Sabbath bride with the words of Lecha Dodi. We turn now to pages 20 and 21. I invite everyone to rise as we sing together. As we get to the final verse, we'll turn towards the door to welcome the Sabbath bride.
Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, yishmi'anu el hamiuchad. Adonai echad, u'shmo echad, l'shem u'tiferet v'litilah. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor habracha, merosh mekerem nesucha, sof maaseh b'machsheva tehila.
Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, hitoreri, ki ba'olech u'miuri, u'miuri shir dabrei, לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה.
We turn and face the Sabbath bride.
בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצולה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה,
לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. Please remain standing. We continue with the Baruch Hu. Yet at night I awake, am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer?
Can you hear my voice? Can you
understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared?
Yada die die, yada die.
Page 30, please be seated. We read together, Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bivaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chochma poteach she'arim, uvitvuna meshane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umisader et hakochavim, b'mishperotehem barakia kirtzono, borei yom v'layla, kolel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or.
ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב הרבים. אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת.
ומשפטים אותנו לימדת, על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו וקומנו נשיח בחוקיך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת. אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת. אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת.
Please rise.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
Continue with Ve'ahavta, page 36. Please be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Each morning and evening, as we get to this point in the service and we sing the words of Micha Mocha, we celebrate God's ability to bless us with miracles. Norat Tehiloto Seifele, we say, awesome in splendor, working wonders. Our redemption from Egypt was a miracle, no doubt. But I can remember the last time that I experienced a miracle. It was the evening of November 2nd, 2016. Chicago Cubs had once again blown a lead and found themselves watching the Cleveland Indians climb back and tie the game in the bottom of the 9th inning. And when the 9th inning ended, I knew that if that game went to the 10th inning, all the momentum was with the home team Indians, and it wouldn't take more than an inning for them to outscore the Cubs and for the 108-year-old dream of the Cubs winning the World Series to go once again by the wayside. Before that game, there were news reports of where people were going to be watching that game, including sons and daughters watching the game on their devices at the gravesite of their parents. I am not making this up. So they could potentially share the joy of the Cubs winning their first World Series with their deceased loved ones. My grandfather lived his whole life, the biggest Cub fan I ever met, never once seeing them win anything. And then, as they went to commercial after the 9th inning, a miracle occurred. The skies opened up, and it began to rain. After a 45-minute rain delay, the Cubs came out of the dugout, scored a couple of runs in the top of the 10th, and at the bottom of the 10th, with a lazy ground ball to third base, fielded cleanly by Chris Bryant, threw across the diamond, and for the first time in anyone's lifetime, the Cubs won the World Series. And I know where that rain came from. It was the tears of my grandfather and all of the others. I'm getting teary right now thinking about it. Saying, I can't believe this is happening again. And the rains came down, and we became the champions. Whatever moments you have in your life that make you think this is the best thing that ever happened, and I can't believe it happened, that is what we celebrate with the words of Micha Mocha, page 40.
Micha Mocha ba'elim Adonai, Micha Mocha nedar b'kodesh, Micha Mocha ba'elim Adonai, Micha Mocha nedar b'kodesh, Nora tehilot, Osei felech, Malchutecha ra'u banecha, Bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, Ze'lianu ve'amru, Adonai imlok le'olam va'ed, Micha Mocha ba'elim Adonai, Micha Mocha nedar b'kodesh.
ונאמר כי פרע אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים.
Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Save us
For 6 days God made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day God rested. For 6.5 innings we play baseball, and then we have a seventh inning stretch. And if you are at Fenway Park, it's also the time, towards that point of the game, where you get to celebrate with a very special melody that we will use this evening as we sing together the words of Vishamru on page 44.
Get up and stretch if you want. There we go.
The name is Israel et HaShabbat.
Come on, don't be shy.
La'asot et HaShabbat
לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל
Shabbat,
Shabbat, Shabbat, Shabbat.
La'asot et HaShabbat לדורותם
ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני.
עשה אדוני.
We have the Jewish version of the seventh inning stretch. We rise. We continue on page 46 with the tefillah.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'imotzeinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'mevii Geula livnei b'neihem, Leman Shemo be'ahava, Hoshia Umagen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Bezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye Hakol, Atah Rav Lehoshia, Mashiv HaRuach Morid HaGashem, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye Hakol Berachamim Rabim, Tzomech Noflim Verofech Olim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Bal Gevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Memit Umechayem, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'nemanata L'chayot HaKol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol. Atah Kadosh v'Shimcha Kadosh, U'Kadoshim b'chol yom Yehalelucha Selah. Baruch Atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
Please be seated. There is something about baseball that differs it from so many other spectator sports. First of all, it's been around so long. And so many generations have seen baseball. But even more importantly, and I think this is what differentiates baseball from the other big spectator sports, is it's affordable. I remember when I lived in Chicago, tickets were $6 to go and watch the Cubs in the bleacher seats. And that is why it is so much a part of the experience, so much a part of the American pastime. And while we have shared it with so many in our lives, we think about that nostalgia as we continue with silent prayer.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata Melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata Melech Adon lechol hashalom.
Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim.
Shabbat Shalom. It is a pleasure to have on the bima this evening Danny Valencia, Oliver's dad tonight, more importantly. Temple Bethel member and Early Learning Center dad Danny Valencia is an American-Israeli professional baseball player who has played Major League Baseball for the Minnesota Twins, Boston Red Sox, Baltimore Orioles, Kansas City Royals, Toronto Blue Jays, Oakland Athletics, and Seattle Mariners. As a member of Team Israel, he played baseball at the 2020 Summer Olympics in Tokyo. Meet Danny and celebrate Shabbat with our baseball team spirit. We want to also welcome Danny to the bima. We also want to acknowledge his parents, Mindy and Mike, his sister, Laura, his wife, Jocelyn, Oliver, who is part of our TBE, and it must be such nachis for his parents to watch Danny on the bima. He was bar mitzvah with his kids in the congregation and brand new to the world. Jocelyn, 3.5 months, is that right? Mr. Brody Valencia. So welcome, Danny. Come join me here at the mic. So welcome back.
You. You guys heard all those teams. I fooled them for a very long time.
So we realized the last time you were on this bima was your bar mitzvah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was
What does it
telling
feel
one
like?
of the future bar
Yeah.
mitzvah yeah, it's been a while, but it feels good. I was saying how I'm more nervous up here than I am playing like in front of thousands in the Olympics, so bear with me.
We're thrilled to welcome you back to your bima. You first played baseball as a kid in South Florida. Let's talk a little bit about your childhood. It's understood that people who make it into professional sports have two things. They have talent and they have encouragement. What was that formula like for you as a child, and when did you realize you could go far in this field?
Well, I think I had an incredible support staff that's all here. This pretty much is my family and my tight circle, my mom and my dad, and my aunt, my uncle, my sister, my wife, obviously. So without them, I probably wouldn't be the baseball player I am. But, you know, a lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifice for my entire family, and some luck.
Yeah.
And, you know, here I am.
When did you realize you were different than other boys who played baseball?
I think probably when I got to high school is when it all really changed for me. Being recruited by Division I colleges has kind of opened up the doors for me to make me feel like the next level was in reach for me. So I think high school is really where it changed, and you know, as you move on from there, you're one step closer.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about your early career, the AA towns. How were you able to stay connected with your Judaism when you might be living in places where Jewish community was inaccessible at times?
I lived in a lot of places where Jewish community was not accessible. It's difficult, it's challenging, honestly. It's very minimal. You try to get in with what you can, but you know, my mom always kind of kept me informed and would come here to these services, and you know, when I'm in a slump or whatnot, she'd come in here and say a few prayers. Obviously, sometimes it didn't feel like it worked, but it certainly was, it was well received for me.
Yeah. The Jewish Virtual Library, which is an online resource, calls you one of the most outspoken Jewish players, that you talk about your religion very easily and openly. And when we talked about tonight, we talked about how a name like Valencia made it sometimes easier to get through doors, but once the Jewish came out, you were proud.
Yeah, you know, my last name being Valencia, I got, you know, more ridiculed for being a Latin Cuban baseball player. Nobody really knew that I was Jewish. It caught them, you know, off guard and surprised. But it's a small circle of guys. So when you are around other Jews that are playing within the game, you kind of make it a point to go out and see them and say hi. You know, our tribe is small. It's even smaller when you're in the big leagues. So you try to make do with that, but it's you try everything you can to stay in touch with those guys.
Fabulous. Bring us to your first home run in Major League Baseball. Just paint the picture for us. And what was it like, and where were you?
Well, I started off that year in AAA, and I didn't hit a home run the entire time I was down there, so I figured, I lost all my power. So I wasn't expecting ever to hit a home run at that point. It was June. We were playing in Kansas City. There's a pitcher on the mound. A lot of you may or may not have heard him. His name's Zach Greinke. Bases loaded, 3-1 pitch, and hit a grand slam as my first home run in Kansas City in Kauffman Stadium. I have the ball and the bat. And that was really the beginning. That really made me feel as a player that I belong there. Doing something like that off a pitcher of his caliber really made me feel like I can do it.
You probably never forget that. Were you there? How many games were you able to go to? Not that many. You watched. You always
They
watched.
watched. I mean, they definitely watched almost every single one. It's
Must be amazing. So of all the Major League ball teams that you've played for, what's your favorite and why?
I would have to say playing in Oakland was probably my most fun. Living in the Bay Area, I'm sure many of you have been out there. It's beautiful. It's really expensive, which really stinks. But other than that, like, you get the good food, you get the good wine from Napa. The culture itself's amazing. I really enjoyed my time out there. The team was great. That's definitely one of my top places. I think Toronto is right below it. It's a great city. And then Baltimore. I had my son in Baltimore, so that'll always hold a special place in my heart. Charm City, have my kid there, I'll always remember that.
You have fans everywhere. Do you keep in touch with your teammates, and what does that look like?
I keep in touch with a lot of them. I've met a lot of teammates. I didn't play for one team my whole career, so I was fortunate enough to meet a lot of cool players, a lot of different personalities, a lot of guys from different faiths, which was, really cool to see different perspective. When it comes to like our Israeli Olympic team, we have a big group text that we all stay in touch with because those guys are like my brothers in a sense that we experienced something, playing in the Olympics together that we'll always have that in common forever. So, there's special ways to do it, but a lot of it's through, communication, texting, calling, and, social media has made things very easy these days.
Fabulous. So everyone loves talking about baseball and the sport, but you realize something really different about the world once you put on the Israel jersey for the Olympic team, and Oliver has it too, nice jersey, with Israel on it. The world will never forget in 1972 the Munich Olympics and the attack on the Israeli team that ultimately led to 11 deaths. Olympics and Judaism and sports are tied together in a complicated way. And so here you were in the 2020 Summer Olympics and all the qualifiers that went up to that. Tell us about the journey to that team and what happened and what you saw about the world once you put on the jersey of Israel.
Well, for starters, growing up here in Boca Raton, you're very, bubbled in the sense that you're around a lot of, other Jewish people. Once you put on an Israel jersey and you put on the Star of David on your hat, things change. And, growing up down here, I never thought of it. I never really encountered anti-Semitism. That's mainly because, my last name is Valencia. It doesn't sound and stick out like a big Jewish last name. But when you start traveling through Germany and Italy and going through these qualifiers, people tend to look at you differently. You hear the comments. You kind of use it as fuel. When I made Aliyah to become a citizen of Israel, they took us around the country. And right before we flew to Germany for our first round of qualifiers, they took us to Yad Vashem. I don't know if you guys have been there. I'm sure a lot of you have, the Holocaust Museum. You go from there into Germany, and it's hard to, I'd be lying to you if I didn't go in there with a chip on my shoulder ready to kick some ass. So it's, we played Germany the third night there, and you could just feel the emotion, playing an extra inning games against them in Germany with the way our team was. We had grandparents of some of our players that are Holocaust survivors. There was a lot on the line. We ended up winning the game, and I'm looking over, I'm seeing guys crying, family members crying. And to me, I'm like, it's a big game, but it really hit me at that point how important it was to go into a place like that and, in a sense, kind of stick it to them in their own country. It was the first time an Israeli team has actually been in Germany and played a team sport for a very long time. Fast forward after qualifying for the Olympics, you get, you go into Tokyo, and now you're Israel. I'm not playing for USA. I'm wearing Israel stuff. The whole 9 yards all the way down. You get bad looks. I kind of mentioned to you, opening ceremonies happen, and we flew in the day before. It's a long flight. We flew in from New York, and we're coming out in opening ceremonies. Yemen is in front of us, and Italy is behind us. And I'll never forget this, honestly, and it's crazy that it still goes on. But I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Olympics, but the tradition there is you exchange pins with the other delegation. Like, that's what you're given. You're given your pin, your Israeli pin. You go and you change it with the U.S. or Germany or Switzerland or whoever it is. And we're waiting in line to be, walk out to opening ceremonies. And one of the Yemen athletes is a diver who went to University of Michigan. He's, I guess, an American Yemenite. I don't know if that's exactly how they would call him, but he asked one of our pitchers if they would like to trade pins, and our guys were like, yeah, no problem. They switch pins. The head of his Olympic committee sees this and storms over, grabs the pin out of his hand, his own guy's hand, takes out his hand, throws it at us, spits in between us, and says, we don't want anything from the Jews. And now, we're a bunch of American Israelis turned up. Doesn't take us too much to get us fired up. So we're ready to go right there. They didn't really like it. We didn't really care. And that kind of just gave you a sense of like what was to come being in the Olympics. But it was not that, it's not the way the USA rolls around the Olympics. It's a little bit different. The security measures that we take when we're there are, incredibly thorough, to say the least. So my time living in Boca, like I was saying, no anti-Semitism, bubbled. Going abroad, especially with an Israel jersey, security comes into play, Secret Service comes into play, and it's definitely a different feeling, but it also adds an element of, toughness and a chip on your shoulder, and that makes our team so tight, because when we do kick butt, it feels good. So, I mean, to think, we grow up here and you don't experience it, to think it's not actually out there would be a little ignorant. So that's my way of, kind of telling you guys how my experience was.
Tell us the makeup of the Israeli team, because we talked about there were a lot of Americans. Do you have two passports now, and will you keep that passport because of potential to play? And tell us about your team a little bit.
So, our team was comprised of 20 guys here that are American Jews and 4 guys that were born in Israel, lived there. So it's 24 guys. The majority of the team did not play professional baseball. We had a couple of guys go figure work at Goldman Sachs in the money business. You know how it is. They talk about not wanting to play on the team, but own the team. So it's a lot of front office, future front office guys, a lot of brainy, heady players. The conversations on the bus, because you're traveling a lot, are starting businesses and investments, and when you have those same types of conversations with guys in the major leagues who are making tons of money, it's more material nonsense than it really was what we were talking about as a bunch of Jewish players. So I take that, I cherish that. It's definitely a different feeling. The guys are a bunch of grinders who play with a big chip on our shoulders. I mean, if you met Israelis, you know what kind of chip on the shoulder they got. They're a little rough around the edges, to say the least, but it was an awesome experience, and those guys, like I said, are my brothers for life.
Were there any leftovers from Greg referred to the league? Israel tried baseball. It didn't stick, but were there any leftovers from those leagues that played on your team?
It's funny he says that, because our manager was one of the players in that league. And he would talk about how great he was there, and I would always be like, nobody really cares. It was his claim to fame. I think he played for Tel Aviv, and he was really pumped about it, but it was a good guy. It's unfortunate that the league went under, but I know now I'm involved, along with a lot of my teammates, of helping raise money to build fields over there. And the whole goal, the whole purpose of what we did was to grow the game of baseball and inspired Jewish kids around the world, not only here in the States but in Israel, to pick up the bat and the ball, because they see us having so much fun on TV, wearing the Israel jersey, and that's kind of what the whole goal was when I started this thing.
Do you think you would be playing with them again in 4 years?
My intention, honestly, is to play in the World Baseball Classic next year with them. That would probably be my last hurrah, because I tell you what, I lift up my kid from school and my back hurts already, so I can't imagine how much more I can do. I'm getting old in the sport years, but I think I have one more go with them, but I'll always be in communication with them and helping them grow the game.
That's awesome. I want to talk about dreams for a second. We're people of dreams, and I think for parents, it's a dream to have your child play college ball, let alone professional. Eleanor Josephson, who's over there somewhere, her son played college ball. He's in his 30s now. You still never forget when someone plays college. It's like a big deal to play college sports, let alone to go to the major leagues. So in some ways, when you're a professional athlete, you get dreams realized at a very young age. So what do your dreams look like now? In some ways, with a beautiful family, fulfillment of dreams, certainly that we have, but professionally, what are your dreams looking like for the next 5, 10 years, and even the near future?
You look at the energy in this kid. My future, it's one of those things. It's honestly, it's the question I get asked the most. What's next? It's also the question I like the least, because my entire life I grew up with one goal in mind, and that was to play baseball. So finding that next chapter, there's a lot of different things and opportunity out there for me. It's just finding something that I'm super passionate about, that like I was with baseball. That's the only thing I dreamt of. I ate it, I breathed it, I sleeped it. That's what I wanted to be. That's what I did. So in turn, I picked up to really just get my brain working and figuring out the next chapter. I decided, and I told my parents when I left after my junior year at University of Miami, that I'd finished my degree. So right now, I'm currently finishing my degree, and maybe broadcast. Maybe some broadcast could be in my future. Maybe a front office position in a Major League Baseball sports team would be ideal. I think I would add a lot of value in that aspect, but. I got my hand in a few different pots, so we'll see how it goes.
That's great. I can't wait to see. So last question, it's kind of a two-part. What's the best advice that you received in this realm, and what would you say to aspiring athletes or anyone who aspires to something that is reachable by so few?
Oh man, well first I would say it comes from within. How hard you want to work, how much you want to sacrifice, because nobody's going to do it for you. You got to have not only your parents, pushing you like mine did, and my aunt and my uncle and my sister, and being there and supporting you and pushing you, but you got to have it inside you. For me it was, proving those people wrong, the coaches who said I can't do this, or the parents who said I'm too small, or being not recruited or not drafted high. I was drafted late, and I was drafted in the 19th round, and I seen all these guys get ahead of me that they were giving big dollars to, and they thought they were better, and it's just that drive. But don't let anybody tell you can't do something. If I would have bought into everybody who told me I couldn't do it, honestly I wouldn't be up here today, and I wouldn't be the person I am today, or been able to experience the things I have. But you have to have it from within. You have to work hard, and you got to believe in yourself. Never stop believing. I've done it on delusional confidence. Okay, so it can be done.
We can't wait till Oliver and Brody become bar mitzvah on this bima. We can't thank your family enough, and your wife and your kids enough, for just bringing us tonight in your very busy life. Such a fantastic human being. We're so happy to have you back on your hometown bima where you were bar mitzvah, and so proud to have you here tonight.
I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. It's nice to be back here. I've been here, sitting in the back row with my mom during baseball seasons when I come back. Trying to get that good juju for the next year. But it's nice to be here. I was talking to some of the future bar mitzvah, guys. I see them over there with the swaggy shoes. It's pretty cool, man. It happens fast. If you ask my parents, it flew by, and it's an important thing. It's a beautiful thing. Congratulations to that and your family. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I appreciate
Danny
it.
Valencia. Shabbat shalom. Thank you so much. We're going to rise and continue with our prayers for healing. Yishaberach Avotenu v'imotenu. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless all those in need of healing. May God grant strength to the blessed ones. In our prayers for healing this evening, Meredith Abramson, Ronald Abramson, Jim Alexander, Benita Appel, Mildred Barinholtz, Fred Belkin, Mike Blackman, Margie Berman Block, Sharon Bonder, Kathleen Bower-Sox, Dorothy Buxbaum, Ed Burns, Samantha Cutler, Stephen Danitz, Ted Davis, Arnold Dernay, Esther Tehila Spot, Ariel Tsipora, Larry Feidelman, Rhonda Finlay, Aileen Fisher, Raven Holzer Frankel, Norman Friedman, Marty Fromowitz, Marcia Gerson, Larry Guys, Jake Goldstein, Rona Guberman, Marcia Hoffman, Keith Hammer, Mitch Kaplan, Deanna Katz, Bree Kari, Joni Kramer, Andrew Levine, Karen Levine, Rita Lokitz, Eric Lowy, Marba Mallet, Scott Pascal, Michael Penn, Milton Plotzker, Barry Podolsky, Norma Polchek, Robert Reichman, Jackie Robinson, Eileen Rosenbaum, Alan Rosenfeld, Fran Roth, Jamie Schaefer, Yetta Schlesinger, Micah Siegel, Mark Sosin, Henny Thal, Joan Weidenfeld, Jessica Zellermeyer, Maureen Zellermeyer, Sherwood Zellermeyer, and those names that you add as my hand meets your gaze. Baruch atah Adonai Rofei HaCholim. Remain standing and continue on page 282 with Aleinu L'Shabeach.
Aleinu L'Shabeach Adon HaKol, Lateit Gedula Le'yotzei Bereshit, Shelo Asanu Kegoyei Aratzot, Velo Samanu Kemishpachot Adama, Shelo
Pleasure at this time to invite forward to the Bima with greetings on behalf of the Board of Trustees, Debbie Gadima.
Shabbat Shalom. First, I'd like to say Mazel Tov to the Deutsch family on the upcoming B'nai Mitzvah of Noah and Rachel this coming Saturday. And a Mazel Tov to the Reese family on the Bar Mitzvah of Cooper, also this coming Saturday. Mazel Tov, and thank you all for being part of this evening's service. I have some fun upcoming events I'd like to share with you all. Join us this Friday, April 8th at 7:30 p.m. here at the Schaefer campus, where we dedicate a beautiful mosaic in the sanctuary, Birkat Halev, Blessing of the Heart, dedicated by Maurice Plow in honor of his wife. We will also be hosting a Shabbat Unplugged at the Beck Family Campus at 6 p.m. To get more information about our events, please visit tbeboca.org. Passover is just around the corner, and we have some exciting Passover events for you all. Our first is a virtual Seder. On the second night, an in-person Seder here at the Schaefer Family Campus, a Brotherhood Humor Seder, and a woman's Passover experience. There's really a lot going on. So many great options. Again, they're all available. To register and learn more info at tbeboca.org. /Passover 2022. After this evening's service, I hope to see you all at the Oneg, in our courtyard where we can schmooze with clergy and our fellow temple friends. Tonight's Oneg is extremely special. We have some baseball treats, pretzels, popcorn, all sponsored by Brotherhood, so thank you. Then, as you make your way out towards the courtyard, please stop by our tzedakah box and make a donation that you feel is comfortable for you. Our Social Action Committee takes those funds and donates them to other local nonprofits that help our local community. Last but not least, I want to thank Danny and his family for celebrating Shabbat with us. And I apologize for my Oliver making so much noise, but this is his first time here, and it's very exciting. So we have a lot going on. Again, our website is tbeboca.org. We have so many events. It would just take hours for me to mention. To connect with me at the Oneg. I'll be happy to talk about other items we have going on, and I look forward to seeing you all there. Shabbat Shalom.
We want to thank Brotherhood for our enhanced stadium food, Oneg, and staff hard to put this Oneg together tonight. At this time in our service, our thoughts turn to those who are no longer with us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we've taken into our hearts as our own. If you are observing the yard site, the anniversary of a death, or on the period of Shloshim, we invite you to rise when the name of your loved one is read. On the yard site of their deaths, we remember Joyce Adams, Ethel Arb, Perry Bear, Ira Bankovsky, Ruth Goldman Barbieri, Richard Barrows, Edward Batavia, Dr. Saul S. Beck, John Benedetto, Bernard Bragan, Charlotte Brown, Sidney Spencer Carver, Jay Cherry, William Chusmere, Rebecca Clayman, Bruce Cohen, Harry Cohen, Frank Dickstein, Sadie Duff, Phyllis Ellman, Bessie Elson, Edward Harris Endelson, Celia Feldman, Abraham Fisher, Jeffrey Friedman, Walter Friedsam, Elaine Glauberg, George J. Glehan, Beatrice Goldberg, Dorothy Goldstein, Felix Goldstein, Martin Good, Norman Gortz, Bernard Hauser, Robert Height, Julius A. Higgier, Joseph Himmelstein, Joyce, Nancy Honig, Melvin Intriligator, Maxine Johnstone, Herbert Candell, Miriam Katz, Fanny Kaufman, Michael Kelton, Leon Kaczynski, Herman Kramer, Estelle Brodsky-Labiner, Abraham Levine, Edie Levy, Norman Lippman, Eleanor Gutke Millibrand, Pearl Mirror, Alvin Natkin, Armin Pulmerter, Rachel Pollock Werman, Ruth Rails, George Redler, Miriam Resnick, Maurice Rosenthal, Bertha Rothberg, Irma Rothschild, Charles Rosalind Salmon, Aileen Sampt, James Schlesinger, Jack Schuver, Selma Sorenko, Jerry Shapiro, Eugenie Simpson, Tessie Singer, Matilda R. Sokol, Leonard Stein, Eleanor Stengel, Irene Stern, Irvin Isaac Strass, Fletcher Charles Suber, Harry Tabor, Lee Tager, Diane Vigdor, Elsie Weidenfeld. And in the period of Shloshim, those who've been laid to rest in recent days, Jack Kaufman, Patrick Hanrahan, Joan Schiller, Brenda Wishner, Chris Durst, Stuart Krakow, Jackie Lardon, Robin Hallow, Jeffrey Engelman, Jessica Udelson, Stephen Schulman, Douglas Edward Johnstone, Myra Cohen, David Clark, Arnold Putterman, Alan Utstein, Edith Markell, Madeline Arbisfeld. So add to our prayers this evening the names of the Israeli terror victims of the last 10 days: Amir Khoury, Rabbi Avishai Yechezkel, Rabbi Yaakov Shalom, Dimitri Mitrik, Victor Sorokafut, Shirael Abikart, Vizan Falach, Laura Yitzchak, Rabbi Moshe, Dorit Yachbas, Menachem Yehezkel. If you have a name you would like to add to our Kaddish prayers, please do so as my hand meets your gaze. Zichronam Levracha, may all their memories be for blessing. On page 294, we rise and join together as a community in the words of the Mourner's Kaddish. We join together, page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei be'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala uv'izman kari v'yimru amen. Yehi shemei rabba mivarach le'olam almei almaya yitbar tabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh V'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shemei kudasha b'richu, la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'romav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn and comfort the bereaved among us. And let us say, amen.
A special shout out to the band tonight. Vindia on the keys, Ricardo on the bass, and Jeff on the drums. So very, very great to have them with us. And this last one, you know, baseball and peace, they go right together, except, of course, if, you know, you're from the Bean and you meet somebody from the Yankees. But I don't know, Danny's been around everybody. I bet he's his source of warmth and peace, brings people together just as baseball does.
Let's invite our B'nai Mitzvah forward to help lead us in Motzi after.
Oh, say shalom, b'im romav, uyaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru amen, ve'imru amen. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Play ball and Shabbat Shalom.